been live, but we are here. Happy Sunday to those of you where your day is just getting started, to those of you where your day is about to come to a close and you are about to head into the early hours of Monday. Then hopefully you stay around. If not, this video will be up for your continued viewing pleasure later on. So you can always replay. Now, if you're coming on into the channel and you don't know who I am Faith. Okay, that's not going to change. That is my government's name. I mean, if I come up with a decent name that doesn't include my government name, then I will let you guys know. But so far, we're just going to stick with Faith. But yes, I am Faith. I am a tarot reader by law. Just kidding. I'm a tarot reader, but I also have been getting more into astrology and numerology over the last couple years, and we are here. So, yeah, today is going to be a new one. I said I was going to preserve the weekends for astrology content. So hopefully I can keep this going. But remember, I said last week, you never know how long you got me. So you better enjoy me while I'm here because I'm liable to just take a break for like 3, 4 weeks and then I'll come back. But hey, Yolanda and everybody else that you've stuck your head in. Hey, like I said, I know it's been a minute since I've kind of been off the scene a little bit, but I have just been living in solidarity and peace. So, you can't argue with that. But we are going to be talking about Tiana Taylor and Iman Shumpert. Now, of course, whenever this whole situation happened, I had a couple of you guys text me that you wanted me to go over the chart. Now, I didn't want it to be a rush job, so I didn't want to jump into it that same day that I was given the text messages. So that's why I kind of let this simmer down a little bit some to see uh you know, where the energy is at today. I did not do an event chart in terms of how Iman or Tiana is feeling about this whole separation. Who knows they're going to get a divorce, but I may decide to stick that in at the end of this video. But enough of me blabbering. Let's go ahead and start sharing my screen. So I do want to go ahead and we'll look at Tiana's chart first. I mean, it doesn't really matter whose chart I look at first, but we'll look at Tiana's chart first. But I know I haven't really did this a lot with any of the charts that I have been doing, excuse me. But I'm talking about looking at one's past life or one's ancestors, we should say, in your chart. Now, one's ancestors is tied to the fourth house. So you can kind of see or get a little bit of an idea in terms of where you came from or in terms of, ancestral wise by looking at the fourth house and the lord of the fourth house. Also, we'll look at the degree and et cetera, et cetera. But while we're on that topic, I did go ahead and pull up, kind of took a little bit of a look at Tiana's. Now, we don't have Tiana Taylor's exact birth time, so we're just going to take this chart as is. So, as you can see right here, the fourth house line when it comes to Tiana's chart is going into the sign of Gemini. Remember, I talked about it before. Whenever you read these charts, it can kind of be kind of confusing at first, especially when you're trying to figure out housing systems and if this house goes here or if this house goes there. So whenever you're looking at the chart, you have to take the number that's underneath the line, that is the house. Don't go on top. See how you have a 1 right here? You would think that, okay, the first house is probably going to be Aries, or you may start to count like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But that's not necessarily always the case in every chart because the housing degrees or system is going to be different. So you go by the number underneath the line. So in this instance, the number 2 sits right underneath this line. So that would make her second house the house of Aries. And you just do that all the way around. Some charts will not have a house. Again, it depends on the system. Like you see how big Tiana Taylor's seventh house is? That joker is humongous. So because this part of her chart is so big, it may take away space from her having like an eighth house. Now she almost, or having well, yeah, almost having an eighth house. Now, if you look at this eighth house line, is really, really close to almost being in Scorpio. So if her, it depends on, the date, her time of birth. So if her time of birth was probably a little bit different, she may not really have an eighth house, you know? Um, it may seem like that. So that's just a little fun fact for some of you guys, where it definitely, especially for me at the beginning, is very tempting to just count. Okay, but as you get more into it, you have to look at the line. So with Teyana's fourth house being in Gemini, fourth house again, your roots, that's on the ground, or we could say your root chakra, your foundation. Okay, so with that already, Gemini being our communicator. Okay. Gemini also being tied to, well, any sort of communication you're looking at when it comes to Gemini, because that is Mercury, and um, also Gemini, or, Gemini younger siblings. Okay. So, and this is just my opinion. Of course, I'm not saying that this is going to be a fact, but with her fourth house being on, like, in Gemini, and since Gemini is tied to, like I said, younger siblings, it's normally a third house type of thing, and tied to the communicator. Okay, I kind of feel like this may even be someone, since we're also talking about the voice, this may even be someone where whenever they were a child, possibly in their past life, there was something that was wrong with their voice. They could have been deaf. She could have been deaf. So coming over into this current life, when it pertains to her voice, there may be some hiccups there when it pertains to what her voice sounds like. And it may seem weird, but you may be looking at a person where you've kind of like had to learn how to communicate again, because that sense, one of those senses, was just not necessarily working in your past life. So like I said, it could, again, makes think of mute, so it could definitely be possible deaf child or something like that. Or it could just be something may have happened to their vocal cords, or, since the Lord of Gemini, which is Mercury, is in the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn is our, like, elites, it is our authorities, it is power, and especially with it being here in the 10th house, we may even have leadership. So with that being said, because we have this young energy, you may even have someone, maybe in a past life, where they could have been duct taped. Their something could have been put over the top of their mouth to restrict them from communicating, which, who knows what that could have been. That could have been, who knows, slavery. That could have possibly just been, you could have had a oppressive father, or it could have been in an instance where it may have just been punishment. They taped your mouth as a form of punishment, and who knows what else falls into that. Um, and I say that because her Mercury, which we are still talking about her fourth house, which is where our ancestors, our past life kind of lies. Fourth and eighth house to me. Um, I'm saying that because her Mercury, let's go down here. The Lord of her fourth house, which is Mercury, is situated on the 8 degrees of Capricorn. Now, the eighth degree is tied to Scorpio. Okay. And we know Scorpio is in here, right? Scorpio is in this eighth house of secrets, we could say darkness. There's not a lot of light being shown or shine through the eighth house. Okay, the house of the underworld, the house of sex, the house of taboo. So we could even also add on to what I was talking about in terms of her fourth house lord, that the whole duct tape situation, we may even start going into that realm of bondage. Okay. I don't want to say sex slave, but we're not going to take that off of the table. That could be something that has transpired in this life, or this could be somewhat of a karmic trauma that possibly has carried over, like hopefully that is not the case, but being held captive and maybe even having to deal with things in bondage in terms of whenever you were younger, especially when it pertains to like elites or authority figures and stuff like that. That can be, without a doubt, that's very traumatizing. I don't care who you are, even if you think that that may be something you like, it still can be traumatizing to some sort of, uh, some sort of effect. I mean, really, I don't really know why somebody really want to be tied up and treated that way. I don't care if you say you like it. Somewhere, something in your mind is probably telling you that this may not necessarily be okay, but you've kind of like convinced yourself that, hey, it's cool. But that may not necessarily be the reality in your mind of the situation. Okay, sorry about that. I had to talk to my child. So because the eighth degree of Capricorn is a degree of believe it may be impotence, but let me go back and double check. Yes, the eighth degree of Capricorn is tied to impotence or kind of like helplessness. We have doomed fate, disappointment, worldly wisdom, humility. So, you know, speaking of that type of humility, if we just kind of like bring this around into the current environment, like now, you may have someone when in terms of their voice, they've been teased about their voice, they felt humiliated about their voice. Okay. So again, it almost kind of brings up that same energetic, like trauma type of subconsciously speaking, you don't necessarily know where it's coming from, that trauma of having to have like your mouth duct taped, kind of like to keep you quiet. So in some type of way, this could have kind of like came over as well. And then with her Mercury being in the 10th house of our career, of course, our reputation. Sorry, my child thought he was gonna walk away and go eat in the room. I think the not. Okay. So anyway, so with her Mercury being in the sign or in the house of her career, of her reputation, again, with it being on a degree of tied to helplessness or doomed fate, you may even have someone where they're just not heard in their career and they feel this, and it also could create someone who is very disappointed with where they're at in life, whereas me and you may look at Tiana Taylor and it's just like, look, you seem pretty accomplished. You have been able to rub elbows with some people that can make or break your career, so it doesn't seem that bad. But that's not the case for her. May even go to the point of feeling like she always has to check in with someone before she can say anything. Specifically, it could be a parent, um, or a father, since we are in the house of the father. I don't want to say the fatherless, but hopefully that's not the case. But I'm not going to take it off. I'm not saying the 10,000 is fatherless, but I'm talking about in her instance. Okay, like um fatherless child, I guess, maybe in some sort of a manner. And then of course, it looks like her Mercury is making an aspect. Oops, that's the wrong. It looks like her Mercury is making an aspect to her moon. Let's double check. Yes, her moon is squaring her Mercury right there and is at a 1 degree orb. So when I talk about 1 degree orbs, it just means kind of just like the closeness of of the planets. Like, are they, if they're like significantly far apart, then if they're separating, then the orb is going to be wider because they're moving apart. Hence, if you look down here, Jupiter trine midhaven, that's kind of like moving away. It's not like a close aspect, like if she had her Jupiter trine midhaven probably in a little bit of a tighter orb, I would probably say her career would maybe be more sustainable, or it wouldn't seem like that her career was starting to diminish. Okay, even though I've talked about before how Jupiter trine midhaven is a good aspect to have if we're talking about popularity, support from the public, as well as moon sextile Jupiter. However, the orbs of these planets are pretty, like, they're not super tight. So that kind of makes me think of somebody who doesn't necessarily feel maybe in control of their career. They feel like, or maybe she may get older and it may start to feel like maybe her career is starting to slip a little bit. Okay. But back to now, I believe Saturn also rules over jealousy. So this is, and that goes back to me talking about you have someone who it doesn't matter kind of like what they accomplish, they're going to have that itching feeling in the back of their throat, or they want to say it. They, they may say, because this, I don't know if this is for certain, but she kind of gives me that vibe of somebody who has either a voice coach, a speech coach, or maybe even you have that particular coach where everything that you write, it has to go through their approval and then you can say it. But that may be because sitting in her throat chakra may be an energy of, I freaking hate everybody because you guys don't appreciate me. I'm talented and I don't understand. So it can come across as maybe bitter or jealous. I think in human design, she is a projector, if I remember correctly. So if she's a projector in human design, projector pretty much just means you got to wait for the invitation to speak. You just can't be popping off at the mouth and thinking that people really give a damn about what you're saying, because they don't. They will care once they let you know that they care. Like once they say, "Hey, Teyana, how do you feel?" Now you can speak. But if you're just speaking willy-nilly, nobody's ever going to hear you, and you're going to feel this way. You're going to feel, like nobody listens to me, but a lot of it could just be, you are eager for people to hear you talk. I get it. I get it. Okay. And also, Saturn kind of gives me that kind of dry type of vibrato, or that dry type of energy. So again, with Mercury being in the sign of Capricorn, her voice is probably very dry, very raspy, yay. But again, this to me feels like someone who has, in a way, had to learn how to speak, especially if they had a past life where they were somewhat mute, you know, not by their own admission, you know. Like I have to be mute because I was born this way, or unfortunately, I fell into the hands of the wrong people and they put me on mute, you know. Um, but specifically that doomed fate, um, and I hope this doesn't end up being the thing where, because again, her fourth house Lord is here in that 8th degree Capricorn, on a degree that talks about a fated doom. I hope it's not a situation where the end may not necessarily be so pleasant, or there could be something not so pleasant that may transpire, and it could kind of possibly be the end of Tiana as we know her. And we don't know what that event could be. I mean, really don't know. It's hard to tell at this particular point. Okay. Oh, and I was saying with her Mercury being connected to her moon is in Libra. We know our moon is tied to our emotions, right? Um, but also, moon is the mind, as I always say, and Mercury is the intellect. So, this definitely feels like someone where they have to probably bite their tongue a lot, because in their mind, they don't understand why they have to keep dealing with disappointment, and why people who are less than them gets ahead. But they have to try to contain that, because we know Libra moons have that tendency to move towards trying to always be balance. I need to find the balance. I need to find the balance. But sometimes this can be an energy where you may play both sides, and that could be, that definitely can be a dangerous game, you know. So maybe we'll talk about the moon in a bit. That I'm not necessarily gonna, there's no guarantees, but I really wanted to look at her fourth house because of it being ancestors, and I haven't really did this a lot with any of the other charts that I read, but it's something interesting that I do plan on um incorporating, I would say, moving forward. Okay. Now, I do also want to make note that she is born on the 10th of December, So her sun energy, okay, is also going to play a significant role. I'm pretty sure she's born on the 10th. Pretty sure I got that right, yeah, December the 10th. Just want to make sure because sometimes, yes. So remember, I've said before in the past, based off of my theory, that energetic footprint that you carry, depending on the day that you were born, is important as well. So she has Sun in Sagittarius. We know Sagittarius is what? Sagittarius, the guru, is normally the ninth house. Makes you think of inner knowledge. Is the priest, the preacher. It can be godlike complex. Okay, but also Sagittarius, foreign things. Okay. Now I also remember we talked about before. I can't remember what chart we started this on, where the sun is good in all its glory, but we also cannot forget that the sun is limitations. Because think about, your ego can be a limitation depending on if you get too out of control with it or not. Okay. So what could we say could possibly limit Teyana? Oh, possibly what I just talked about, the bitterness, the godlike complex. Hey, and there's nothing wrong with looking at yourself in that admirable way, like, I am the greatest, I am the best, but it can get old. It can get old, especially when you become a sore loser. So, in some sort of manner, maybe limitationly wise, she may be a little bit of a sore loser. What is her sun? Her sun is conjunct Midhaven, sun square ascendant, sun trine Jupiter. Okay. So we know our ascendant right here is tied to our first house. Our first house is the house of self. We know normally the first house is the house of your face. Okay. As well as being like the brand. It is the brand. The first house is the brand. That's why people say the first house is, I guess, how you show up or how people see you, because you are the brand, when we're talking about the face. You get what I'm saying? So in this instance, you know, we know Pisces is the creative. Now, nonetheless, with her sun making an aspect to her ascendant, we could say that her ego field energy is coming from the fact of her being a I don't know why I kind of want to say a perfectionist. I don't know if she is a perfectionist, but she could be. But we could say that her ego is coming from a place of her being very sure of herself when it comes to creativity. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever. But we know that there is a fogginess that comes with like Pisces because, Neptune, Poseidon, the god of the sea, okay? Um, of course, we know the very watery energy, but we also know Pisces, 12th house, are subconscious. So you can be sure of yourself, but not sure of yourself, if that makes sense. And when you're not sure of yourself, that could possibly be when maybe that nastiness or that godlike complex or that sore loser energy comes into play. We know Sagittarius wants to learn because it is higher knowledge. But in this particular instance, you're not hearing what I'm saying to you. Why are you not getting it? Maybe someone who may struggle a little bit to take um, constructive criticism, maybe, especially when it comes to her creative processes. Okay. But I get it. Whenever you are, I guess, a master, or you feel like you are a master in a particular field, you don't really want anybody telling you that you're not really a master. But this may also be, again, her limitation that holds her back from being better because you don't want to take direction. And I'm not saying this is necessarily 100% true when it pertains to Sagittarius, but this is just like possible my opinion. It kind of gives me that vibe because this is the sign of our knowledge, expanding on that knowledge, our higher education. This makes me think of someone where it's just like, they just stop learning. Like they learn what they feel like they need to learn to be up there, but then they just stop. It just gets to a point where it's just like you've stopped learning and yet you're surprised that you're not getting further. Huh. I'm not surprised. I mean, you're probably surprised because your ego is telling you something different instead of what's on the ground. Now, she has quite a few planets in Capricorn, which is Earth, which that's the groundedness. But again, I still feel the jealousy here is the limitation. Also, the lack of knowledge is the limitation. Not saying you don't have the knowledge, it's the lack of knowledge when it comes to you just know when it comes to learning that you cannot stop learning or you're not growing. So at this particular point, you can't really be mad at anybody really but yourself. I get it. I get it. But you got to take some sort of what accountability. Maybe I should just change my channel name to accountability astrology because every day I'm having to come across somebody or people or some of y'all that be wanting these readings and yet you still don't want to take accountability for your shit. Every day I feel like I have to run into this. And that's probably why these days I've just been tired. I swear I've been trying to do a reading, period, for like the last week. But every time I go to pull up the computer, I'm just tired. It's just immediately the energy just removes itself from my body. So a part of me is just like, wow, am I actually reaching the end of this journey? I may be, to be honest with you, because I'm getting tired. And that's never a good thing. Even with me stepping away and taking a break, it just feels like, is the whistle being blown for me in another direction? Maybe. But who knows? But anyway, back to what I was talking about with her. North Node in 11th house, so not really shocking as well that she has some sort of notoriety because we know the 11th house is our fans as well. It's celebrity industry in 11th house, so if having in like an 11th house stellium, having three or more planets in 11th house, I feel like that can be good in terms of if you're trying to make a name for yourself maybe in the industry. Okay, it's just my opinion. Okay, or if you have like your chart ruler, which would be if you have your first house lord in the 11th, or if you by chance, based on my theory, if the day that you were born, if that planet associated with that day is maybe in the 11th house, if your 10th house lord, your midhaven right here, if that is in this house, then there you go, you know? Um, but I guess I'll pause for a second. Oh my God, you guys are, oh, okay. I'm about to say, you can't be this quiet. Um, oh, oh, well, hello, everybody coming in here. Yeah, Yolanda, I really am trying. I don't think you guys understand. It is a doozy. I really am trying. I just get tired and it makes me feel like that, wow, you know, is this really where I'm supposed to be at? Because, I've been doing certain hobbies for like 2 decades and I never get tired of it. I'm just like, a new day. This is exciting. But when it comes to this, you guys just get under my skin and I'm kind of getting tired of y'all, to be honest. So maybe that's why I'm a little tired, but I'll get over it. But anyway, back to the chart. So let's go back to the chat. So, like I said, we kind of talked about that, kind of talked about Teyana when it pertains to what I saw going on. So let's kind of switch on over and we'll look at Iman. Okay, I should have pulled up a picture for him. I mean, you guys know what Tiana looks like. If you don't know what Tiana looks like, now I remember being introduced to Tiana whenever she was on Super Sweet 16. That was years ago. That was the first time that I, was drawn or was made known of Tiana Taylor. Whenever she had her Super Sweet 16, I think her mom I don't know if her mom was her manager at the time or something like that. But that's is my um okay. That was my first introduction to her. Okay, and I don't. Okay. So, I probably should wait, maybe I can see here. I was about to change this, but I do not want to change this. Let me share this with you guys. This is the chart I made last night of Tiana and Iman's composite. You know, the composite chart is the relationship in practice. Again, as I said before, if you and said person do not have a relationship, a composite chart, I don't really feel like would do you much good outside of letting you live in a fantasy. At that point, if you and somebody don't have a relationship, you need to be looking at the synastry and probably only the synastry. Okay. Now, if you and this person have had or do have a relationship, then you can move on over to the composite. The composite is the midpoint when you put two charts together. You can also do this with parents as well. Parents, kids, you can do that. Okay. But if you're just up in the sky and you just are hoping that you have a relationship with the person, don't be running a composite. A synastry probably may make more sense, but just don't run this guy. Okay. So this is their composite chart that I actually put together. And I wanted to make note of this one particular placement where here we go. They have moon in opposition to Venus at a 2-degree orb. So it's kind of tight. Moon opposite Venus can sometimes point to divorce. Divorce. Okay. And we can even possibly say maybe Taurus um, moon, Libra moon, that this may possibly fall under their umbrella since Taurus and Venus, their natural ruling, since Taurus and Libra, their natural ruling planet is Venus. So maybe, but it's not a definite. Of course, everybody is different. So we just can't roll with this and say, oh, yeah, every Taurus moon and Libra moon in the entire world will be divorced. That is just irresponsible. It's not responsible at all because everybody's chart is going to be different. Just like I think earlier I was looking on Twitter and there was like this whole discord where people were talking about that if your nodes, so nodes, I've talked about it before, like your north node, south node. If your nodes are making contact with somebody else's personal planets, then you're pretty much doomed, and you and this person should never have a relationship. Irresponsible. Because you can't speak for everybody on that aspect. Just because you had a shitty time with somebody whose north node made an aspect with your moon, that don't mean I'm gonna have a shitty time. I may have a great time. Me and that person, we may get shit done. We may take over the world. So it's just not responsible to say, oh, yeah, every single person in the world, if you've had a relationship with somebody and their Saturn makes an aspect with the nodes of your moon, then you might as well hang it up. You and this person will never have a good relationship. Well, that tells me all I need to know about you. You lack accountability because you think that you're not the problem. But anywho, that's just my little spiel. That may be another reason why I'm getting tired because it's just very irresponsible to say that, you know. That's just me. So I'm not gonna say that every Taurus moon and Libra moon are just gonna be doomed in terms of relationships because that could be a total fallacy. Okay, the relationship is what you make it to be. This can just give you a blueprint of what possibly you may encounter, but it's not the end all be all. Please don't look at it in that regard. Okay. But like I said, this is their composite chart, and you see how they have this moon smack dab opposite their Venus. Now it's kind of hard to tell because the numbers in the system got kind of wonky, but I'm assuming um it looks like Venus in composite is exalted in Pisces. So hey, I mean that's fine. Moon is exalted. I mean, excuse me, not moon. Their Venus is exalted in Pisces. Okay, yeah, that's fine. But we got that moon in Virgo, and I've seen before moon in Virgo could be really good when it comes to business. And by the way, this is just my own personal opinion. Starting like a business or something like that at moon in Virgo, I think it may work out well, but that's just me. If you're starting a business when the moon is in an earth sign, maybe not Capricorn because we know the moon debilitates in Capricorn, but outside of that, it may still work though. Because you need that earth, you need that grounded when it pertains to your emotions. You don't want your emotions to get in the way of a good idea. So maybe starting, like I said, a business or anything whenever the moon is in the earth sign, it probably could be good. But again, the stigma on Virgo has not been lost upon itself. You know, that stigma of need to be the perfectionist. You kind of like want things to look a certain way. So even though they have this aspect of possible divorce, it can totally be avoided if you can control this moon Virgo, especially since the moon is actually conjunct the midhaven. So we know the midhaven is our reputation. So it kind of makes me think as well that you may have this situation between the two of them where one of them wants to divorce. And you know that you have been made aware, but you try to save face because you possibly have gotten sucked in to that aspect of we have to be perfect. It has to look perfect. But that also could be what possibly has gotten in the way and maybe kind of damaged or ruined this as well because you're trying to make it perfect. And sometimes in the guys, under the guys are trying to make things perfect, you don't talk about the real shit that you need to talk about, which could be emotions, which could be maybe somebody has a lack of empathy. Maybe someone, my favorite word, has a lack of accountability. You know, maybe someone is too consumed about business. You're trying to be too much one way. You're not able to let your hair down. I'm suffocating in here because you want this to be perfect and I can't do that. You want me to possibly be someone that I cannot be. Oh yeah, that'll lead you to divorce. See, this is basic stuff that you can fix. That's why I say it's not like this is like end all be all and the chart says, damn it, you're gonna get divorced. No. Maybe if you sat around and you did nothing and you just stay in the house all day and then you just lock the door and you had no interaction, no type of action with the outside world, then hell yeah, you're gonna get divorced. But that's not reality. A lot of people are moving. A lot of people are doing stuff in life to do stuff. So it's not gonna stick 100%. Now, unfortunately, not unfortunately now, some stuff does stick, okay? But for the most part, you can fix it if you want to fix it. Okay. So I just want to point that out a little bit before we get into their composite chart. But let me roll on over to Iman's chart while I am running my mouth. So here we are. Iman is a basketball player. And if I'm not, oh, that's Imani. Which one means my name? Is it Iman or is it Imani? It might be Imani, may mean faith, actually. But that doesn't matter. So he is a basketball player. Okay, that to put it, bluntly, basketball, that's what he knows is known for. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he actually did play on the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron, and I believe he does have a ring, and the ring may have came from Cleveland, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do vaguely remember him playing in Cleveland. Okay. So again, NBA player of from my understanding, he's a creative himself. He was on Dancing with the Stars, and I think he actually did win Dancing with the Stars. So it's not like how you have some athletes, or you sorry, unfortunately, it's not like you have a lot of athletes or not say, well, yeah, a lot of athletes, and they can't do anything else but shoot a ball, run a ball, kick a ball, golf a ball. Not in this particular instance. He has something that he can fall back on that he can do. Good for him. Because like I said, a lot of athletes don't like whenever they're done playing a sport, they become a shell of themselves because they cannot do much of anything else, seriously, because they never got a chance to explore other avenues of their creativity. It was always ball is life, you know, ball hard, go home, however you want to label it. That's just what it is. So let's take a look at his fourth house. So his fourth house, I made this chart, by the way. Um, his fourth house is in the sign of Sagittarius. Now, I was just talking about this when it pertains to Teyana Taylor. Okay. How her, what was it, ninth house, whatever that was in Sagittarius. But the Lord of Sagittarius is Jupiter, right? Where does his Jupiter sit? None other than an exalted position in Cancer. So I don't know if this is possibly a issue that they may have faced when it pertains to this relationship, but with his fourth house being situated, his fourth house lord in an exalted position. If we're talking about ancestor wise, okay, he may have, and even though it's in the 10th house, it doesn't necessarily mean, I know 10th house is leadership, but it don't always mean like Tiana has that Capricorn thing going on, business, leadership. So she was involved in leadership or business in some sort of way. Rather, she was kind of like, unfortunately sold into that in her past life, or she kind of like grew up in that and it was just probably traumatic in some sort of a way. But Iman may come from an ancestral line where things were normal, you know, could have came from an ancestral line of builders, people that, because Cancer is tied to real estate, or homes or apartments, it could have came from that type of energy. So not super, super grandiose, but it's normal, it's safe, it's relaxed. Okay. Jupiter really likes expanding in this Cancer energy because Jupiter moon, they friends. Remember, I say it all the time, Jupiter moon contacts, or even just having Jupiter in Cancer is really good if you want to get the public behind you, because Cancer, aka the moon, is publicity. It is public support. So it's just good. So who knows? He could have been possibly famous or not. Like I said, it could have been average old Joe, who knows, dad or mom, whomever. They could have been blacksmiths, or, they could have just been someone who contributed to the community by using their hands, by building or doing something along that lines, but it was normal. So I don't know if that it could have possibly been an issue as well when it pertains to being in a relationship with someone where they just don't understand where you're coming from. You have a sense of normalcy, whereas I have a sense of survival. Those two are not going to make it. They could, but it's not likely, especially if one of the people starts to get jealous of the other person. Like, how can you be so comfortable? How can you be so normal? How can you be so comfortable in your skin? Because with him, pardon me, with his fourth house lord being exalted into Cancer, Cancer is the home, he could literally be somebody where he is comfortable in his own skin. It ain't no guessing about it because it's exalted. So if you have your fourth house lord exalted, or if you have your fourth house lord at home, you are comfortable with being you. That can be very intimidating on a grand scale because a lot of people are not comfortable with who they are as people. Hence why they try to be someone else, because you don't think you can cut it just by being the person you were born to be. Now, again, there are situations where this is not the case. But like I said, on a grand scale, a lot of people don't know how to sit with themselves and just be cool with who they are. Hence why they be doing crazy shit, you know? But for him, he can sit in that. He could probably be okay with who he is. Now, I'm not sitting up here on Team Iman and clapping for the guy, because he probably has his faults, just like every single human being or every single athlete, because every athlete coming from an athlete has a very high sex drive. Let's be honest, because all that adrenaline is like adrenaline every freaking time. Okay. Imagine you have to go through adrenaline when you go to practice, then you have to go through adrenaline when you go to games, and then it's just a lot of adrenaline going. Okay, so you may need to hump something quite quite a bit. Okay, but that's just my opinion on the matter. That may, unfortunately, that stigma may fall on his shoulders. Well, maybe. Okay, I'm not saying every athlete, but a majority of them, unless you're with somebody with a high sex drive, then you get what I'm saying. Okay, so that could have possibly been maybe an issue in their particular, connection as well. Like I said, if you can be comfortable in your own skin, whereas, her fourth house lord is in a particular degree and position where it's just not super positive. It it's more so in a degree where you're always having to be humbled, okay? Or, it's in a degree where, you try to achieve worldly success, but it always seems like it's just out of reach for some reason, even though you feel like I'm talented, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. What could I be possibly doing wrong? But sometimes, and I'm talking about Teyana, but sometimes this can be an instance where, especially because Teyana has Saturn in Aquarius, Iman has Saturn in Capricorn. Teyana has Saturn in Aquarius, okay? But whenever Saturn is at home, meaning Capricorn or Aquarius, you really got to allow yourself space, grace, and time to grow. Saturn is growth. And the both of them just got out of their Saturn return. Teyana just now got out of hers. Iman got out of his like maybe a year and a half ago. That can be a lot to process whenever you are in a relationship. It really can, especially considering the fact they both kind of like went through their Saturn return at the same time. I can only imagine the chaos that ensued in that. But again, if you have a particular if you have somebody in the relationship where they're too consumed on trying to be perfect, instead of like sometimes when you're trying to move a little bit too fast for Saturn, sometimes you just need to allow the chips to fall where they may. You cannot force things with Saturn. Saturn doesn't understand that. Cold, dry, not particularly warm. You have to give yourself that time. So if you don't give yourself time, and time is different, you know, societal pressure may tell you that time means, okay, you're together for 2, 3 years, you need to be married. You can't dictate the time of Saturn. Saturn's time may say, shit, 12 years. Who are you to say that Saturn's time is not 12 years? Only Saturn can decide that. So that may be another aspect here. Maybe rushing it a little bit because you got too consumed in the thought of everybody talking about you're so perfect. You're so perfect. And you could get caught up in people's opinions as well. Okay, we can't forget again if we go back here to their composite chart. We can't forget, yes, Virgo can be great. We're not very analytical. It can be organized when it wants to, when it wants to, emphasis on when it wants to. Because I ran to some Virgo places and I'm just like, okay, it's a shit show in here. But somehow, some way, they always know where stuff is at. I give them that because okay, that's a skill. Okay. Um, you know, they can be practical, but they may kind of lack that practicality when it pertains to themselves. But in terms of giving the practicality, they probably can be efficient. Oh, and that's another good word probably for Virgos. Could be efficiency because of that sense of trying to be perfect or get that perfectionism type of vibe going on there. Um, but if you think about the downside of all those adjectives I just gave you, can you kind of see how they can wear down on a relationship, especially if you have someone where they may be a little bit more, um, not well, it could be maybe a little bit more happy go lucky, and then you have this person over here where you're so consumed with being perfect, it is literally like draining the life from your eyes because you're trying to keep up with somebody that you're not. But also, it could be you're trying to keep up with somebody who may not even realize that you're trying to be in competition with them. And that could be another thing too. They have their Mars debilitated in Taurus. And I know this may seem kind of left field, but to me, these two, especially because they have Pluto and Scorpio, and Pluto is in the 12th house, this feels very homeboy, you know? This feels very high school or college where you're texting your homeboy and you're just like, "Hey, how many females can you smash before the weekend is out? Let's reconvene on Monday morning at 8 a.m. and we'll compare the numbers." It is giving very, you know, there is a complete lack of submission I feel throughout this entire chart. It is given very, dap me up type of thing. So maybe in a way, somebody could have possibly felt that this them getting married or being in a relationship is particularly good for business, but I kind of got this feeling that one of them was jealous of the other person. Yeah, I'm leaning more towards Teyana, maybe being jealous of him, but maybe I don't know, it could be in reverse. Okay. Um, where did it go? I think it's in the first part of Leo. Yes. Because the length and success of their relationship is also categorized by Jupiter because their fourth house is in the sign of Pisces. And we know Pisces' Lord is Jupiter. Okay. So, and Jupiter is in the eighth, and Jupiter just entered into the sign of Leo at 0 degrees. Now, I actually was reading a little bit this past weekend, and I did see something, but I think this was based off of Vedic astrology, where it was saying, um, planets in the eighth house may not necessarily be particularly good no matter what the hell the planet is. Now I'm going to do some more research on that reasoning to kind of see like why would you come to that conclusion. But I just thought that was pretty interesting. When you think about it, with Jupiter being in the eighth, that could be an inheritance, but somebody may have to die, like your husband, or whoever, spouse, partner, whatever. So that can be a little dramatic. It's like, oh my God, yeah, inheritance, or shoot, it could even be maybe even if it's in the eighth house, you get divorced, but you get the settlement, but it's just like, well, I would rather have my marriage to work, especially if your sixth house lord is in the eighth, because we know the sixth house is troubles when it pertains to relationships. And I think the sixth house may be the house of divorce as well. So if you have your sixth house and Lord in the eighth, then I could see you like getting some sort of a settlement or something like that. But it's like I would rather save my marriage than to sit up here and have to, get a settlement every month. But everybody's different. Somebody might be okay with that. Okay. Um, but yeah, and I know, and me saying possibly that Tiana was possibly could have been possibly jealous of Iman or vice versa. You're gonna have some detractors because everybody just thinks that they know these celebrities inside and out. Please shut up, because that is not true. You don't know these people. I don't know these people. Speculative at best. But whatever. Um, anyway, so I got off track. We're scrolling back over to Iman. Okay. So, like I said, he has that fourth house lord of his ancestors exalted in Cancer. Very normal type of energy. Okay. Um, and let's actually take a look at the degree of his Jupiter. His Jupiter's on the 18th degree of Cancer. I believe the 18th degree is tied to Virgo. Yes, it is, because 17 is Leo. So let's read about the 18th degree of Cancer. Who knows? It may not be good. Let's hold the applause. Just kidding. Execution, noble aspirations, of refined taste, gentle, irritable but playful. Didn't I already say that? I already called it. Playfulness, not so serious. And when you have to be serious, you're irritable. You're like a child. But again, that kind of makes me think of somebody who's particularly spoiled and maybe has always been spoiled, maybe has always been used to getting their way. That can create a bitter or jealous dynamic if the other person feels like nothing ever goes my way. This is complete BS. Hence, where, like I said, it can create a dynamic where you are trying to compete with the other person. because you want what they have. I want to be able to be playful. I want to be able to be spoiled, comforted, etc., etc. I mean, even if it's a situation where you feel that you have to spoil them, but they're not spoiling you in return, that can definitely create some bitterness because you're just like, what are you doing? Like, why does it seem like I'm always trying to spoil you? Why does it always seem like I'm trying to always go out of the way for you? And then, of course, even with this Jupiter energy being exalted, too much of something can be a bad thing. Because we know Jupiter likes to expand, but sometimes too much expansion is a bad thing, right? So, again, with this Jupiter being on a degree of tied to playfulness, your playfulness can get out of control to the point where now you're not taking anything serious. It's almost like trying to play good cop, bad cop when it comes to your kids, or being that particular person when it pertains to your kids, where you lack discipline and you lack making them be held accountable or have discipline as well. But then you have the other parent who's, trying to be disciplined about the matter, but you're constantly overstepping me because you want to play, you want to be seen as the good cop, you don't want to be seen as the bad cop. That can create a lot of tension as well when it comes to parenting dynamics. And I'm not saying that was the case, but it's a possibility. We're not going to write it off like it couldn't happen. But also, since we know Cancer is tied again to the womb, normally tied to the mother, even with that being said, going back to his past life, he could have had a mother who was always there and not in a bad way. Like, I look up, mom is there. Mom is warm, mom is comforting. So and he has son in Cancer as well. So he may also kind of like, you know, move that over when it comes to his own children. So, and then of course, Jupiter is tied to the husband, right? So with it being exalted, even though he probably is childish as hell and is probably very irritating, and he gets irritable whenever you can't play probably 24/7, like you are a freaking teenager, for the most part, he may enjoy kind of like being in that particular dynamic, but he needs someone that's going to match his energy. Teyana has way too much Capricorn. He has way too much Cancer. Cancer and Capricorn are sister signs. However, we know Saturn falls, right? Or it debilitates in Cancer. The moon debilitates in Capricorn. We have that fourth house axis and we have that 10th house axis. It don't always work, even though they're sister signs, and you see a lot of, I see a lot of articles on the interweb, I guess, where they couple Capricorn and Cancer together. I mean, the dynamic is not always there like they're assuming. Just because you're sister signs, it doesn't mean that you guys are really going to get along and it's going to work. Again, case by case scenario. But I have a nifty little thing as well. I was looking at it the other day. I have this astrology chart in my room on my wall. It's just a blank chart, but it kind of gives a little bit of a breakdown of like certain signs and stuff like that. So all the signs that they put on the interweb, I guess, about this sign's compatible with them, I was like, okay, how many houses is this particular sign away from this zodiac sign? And it'll be like 12. Like, they are not. How are they compatible? That is enemy territory. If they are 12th from your sign, enemy territory. You know, like what could be a good example? Like maybe a Scorpio and a Libra, pa, 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 enemy territory. You're 12 from each other. Very subconscious, very mental warfare type of thing going on. I mean, that I was just a sidebar. Um, Now I do want to point out as well that Iman has Mars and Aries, okay, and his Mars is making an aspect to his Capricorn, Saturn. Both planets are at home. He's at home with his sexuality. The other person may not be, my opinion. Also, with his Mars moving into the eighth house, making an aspect to an at home Capricorn, You have great staying power, if you know what I'm saying, in the house of sex. That can be an issue if what did I talk about before? I mean, it is like a majority, you know, that can be complicated. You know, if you are in a relationship with someone that kind of has that particular type of energy, it may almost seem like you can't keep up. It's just like, wow, I thought I was doing okay, but you are really knocking them out, you know? And that can be a lot. Okay. Um, Venus and Gemini, honestly, we know Gemini, the pairs, the twins, Venus is tied to the wife, may get married twice. Uh-huh. Could even possibly end up being to someone else who is in possibly the industry. Okay. Again, we know our sixth house is where oh, that's a penalty. That's definitely a penalty. I'm sorry, it caught my eye. I'm watching the game and ooh, that is a penalty. Sorry. um, you're definitely going to PK5. But anyway, so with the Venus, like I said, that Venus making an aspect to Moon in Leo. Okay. Then the thing is, he will not be without someone or a wife or whoever you say that's not going to love him. I'm not saying that he's not going to love them. I feel like that is the case, but they're really going to love him. You know, there's something about his energy, even if he's not super cracking at the looks, it doesn't matter. To me, I feel like beauty carries an energy that you can't necessarily see. You get what I'm saying? So it may be one of those things, but so far to me it does give me that vibe where he's a vibe. He could be definitely a good time. Needs to grow up, without a doubt. And this whole sexual appetite situation is an issue. Again, it's like a child. I mean, it is like a child. So I guess if you're up for that, then okay. But whereas we go over again back to Teyana's chart and we see how heavy this energy can be. And that can be a lot to be in a relationship with. It can be a lot to be in a relationship with someone who's serious all the time. And it can be a lot to be in a relationship with someone who's playing too damn much. Okay. Playfulness, there's nothing wrong with that. But it can definitely get out of hand. Okay. And also with Tiana having so much Capricorn energy tied to, like I said, the business and stuff like that, this, I hate to say it, but this kind of gives me an energy of maybe someone who's more so consumed or more so, yeah, who's more so focused on the business of things and maybe not necessarily the family side of things. So this is giving me that energy where you just have that dad who is always working. They're your dad, but they're not really around a lot. Because again, with her moon being in Libra, she's being pulled in a lot of different directions. And then, of course, with the fourth house, we talked about as our ancestors, but also with that energy tied to kind of like your family, your roots, it's in the sign of Capricorn on the eighth degree, disappointment. You know, kind of like I thought this was going to give me a different type of feeling, but maybe I'm a little bit disappointed because now it's like I can't really do what I want to do because I have kids and I have family and stuff like that, because she has Chiron and Cancer in the fifth house. So there is some healing that needs to be done surrounding children and really just surrounding herself when it pertains to her emotions and feeling worthy. And by the way, her second house is in Aries. Her second house lord is in Taurus. Oh, no, I lied. Her second house lord is in Gemini in the third house. So, in terms of her self worth, again, remember I said your second house lord, or I don't think I talked about that. But your second house is your house of your self-worth. So if that is at home or exalted, then you're kind of like what's the girl? Sexy Red. I looked at her chart a little bit and I think she has her second house in Aries and her sun is no, I think she has her second house in Leo and her sun is exalted in Aries. So that's why a lot of people can't really understand her, but you know, she is cool with what she is. It's like I know ain't no pretend with that. I may be ratchet, I may be ridiculous, I may be uneducated. I don't care. I'm just uneducated. That's what you're looking at. But when it pertains to Teyana, hers is ebbing and flowing. It's shifting a bit when it pertains to who you are, who you want to be. Okay. So the self-worth we don't know. Okay. And it's of course not a rag on her at all. Hey, I think everybody goes through it in their own way. But let me take a look. And I've talked about them a lot. I just haven't really gotten to the meat of the composite chart. But here we are. I kind of been going back and forth when it comes to the composite chart anyway. So, um, I think I already talked about their fourth house, which is the fourth house is the length and success of the relationship. The fourth house lord is in the eighth house. Unfortunately, um, you know, that can be a little bit of a doozy because I said, the energy was like a planet being in the eighth house isn't really particularly the best position for like any planet, but I'm gonna do some more research on that to see if that's true or false. Okay. But anyway, so how they are seen as a couple is their ascendant. So they have ascendant in Sagittarius, and lo and behold, their ascendant ruler is in the eighth house. So it's a lot of eighth house energy. Oh, excuse me. It's a lot of eighth house energy going on here when it pertains to Tiana Taylor and Iman. Okay. So with their first house being in Sagittarius, fun loving, adventure loving, seeking adventure. But then again, what happens whenever the adventure comes to a close? Now it's no longer fun. Now it seems more so a duty. Now it just seems very irritating, you know? Or you start to become irritating to the other person. Okay. So again, traveling a lot, being open to new experiences, especially experiences that are tied to the eighth house type of energy. Okay. Now, the hiccup here with Sagittarius being on their ascendant is that this is commitment phobia. Okay. I was kind of talking about it a little bit earlier on when I talked about that moon in Virgo, maybe moving kind of fast. You're doing it because people are saying, oh my God, you got it so perfect. So you may have forced it. This may have been a forced, what I talk about. You cannot force Saturn's hand because Saturn takes it personally if you're ooh, ooh, takes it personally if you're trying to force something whenever Saturn enjoys taking its time. Okay, shoot, even Venus isn't really rushing like that, in my opinion, you know? So, but anyway, so this can be a commitment phobic sign. And then of course, with again the ruler of Sagittarius being in the eighth house, it may even have been one of those scenarios where it's just like we're laying down, we're doing our due, and you're so engrossed in that type of energy, in that feeling. It's like, oh, why don't we get married? Oh, I guess that's a good idea. The sex was pretty good. No, people, that's not a good enough reason. You know, that's why I said, what happens whenever the fun stops being fun? You got nothing, you know? You have nothing. Back to the chart. So let's take a look and see the degree of their ascendant. So their Sagittarius ascendant in their composite chart is on the 18th degree. They got a lot of 18 degrees here, very Virgo. Um, Anyway, so Sagittarius 18 degrees. We have, look at that, captivity, passionate, dangers, tortured by stress and limitations. I've been talking about it. Okay. Captivity. That seems very, some of you I've done a past life reading for, and you know that imposter syndrome card has came out when it comes to the imprisonment and slavery energy. You remember that? It kind of feels like that a little bit. Or what's it called? Stockholm syndrome. I don't know if these two have a past life together. I would need, of course, to get the past life cards, do a past life reading. But maybe they do. And actually, let's take a look. Okay, so Tiana has her North Node in Aquarius. Iman has his shut the front door. Now, this is interesting because it looks like, if I'm not mistaken, their North Nodes are conjunct one another. That seems very heavy. If we're talking about synastry, North Node 9 degrees, Tiana's North Node, or is it in Capricorn? Might be in, should be in Aquarius. Her North Node is in 0 degrees Aquarius. So they're like literally right on top of each other. So what does that say exactly? I mean, I just realized that. Oh, would you look at that? North, I think this would be, oh, your meeting feels destined, a karmic relationship. You will feel an immediate pull towards this person. Oh, darn it. I just I skipped right over it. Oh, well, I mean, of course they're the same age, aren't they? Hmm. Yeah, see, this particular article, it says that like the more you get to know each other, if you have North Node conjunct North Node, then that is the more you realize that your vision for the future is aligned, or you may realize the opposite, that is not aligned, even if you grew up in different cultures or environments. Remember, I talked about that when it came to Iman's past life energy compared to Tiana Taylor's past life energy. Okay. Because at some point, based off what I'm seeing here, at some point with that North Node kind of smack dab, kind of like a little bit on top of the other person's North Node, at some point you may start to feel less comfortable being with that person, less comfortable in their presence. The journey may no longer feel rewarding. It may feel, again, like I said, a burden. Okay. So, and this can kind of be the situation if you're dealing with someone who's pretty close to the same age. Now, if they were like 2 years apart, then she would probably have North Node in Capricorn. He probably have North Node in Aquarius. That's a little bit different, but they are literally a couple months apart. So I can kind of see where this is going with that. And I actually didn't realize that until I paid attention to it just a second ago. So that's tough. That is a tough one. Okay. What page was I on? Oh, okay, I'm on this one. Okay. And I was talking about oh yeah, Sagittarius ascendant. So we kind of looked at their ascendant. So let's take a look at the Jupiter. Their Jupiter is on 0 degrees Leo, because that is the Lord of the first house. Remember, the first house is how you show up, how people see you as a couple. Adventurous, fun loving. They're like, hey, I would like to hang out with them. Hey, who knows? I would probably like to sleep with them. They probably get so many offers when it comes to people wanting to bed the two of them, because their first house Lord is in the house of sex intimacy. It's not in the house of bed pleasures, but it's in the house of sex intimacy. Okay. So let's go to Leo 0 degrees. Dignity, fearless, ambitious, bum, jealousy. Oh, yeah. Sometimes I'm right, you know. But yeah, I kind of talked about that anyway, where I said you may have a situation where one person is unfortunately jealous of the other person. Now, who that would be, we don't know. We are not Iman nor Teyana. I don't care what, I honestly don't care what people say because a lot of people be on some bullshit. So, people are just like, they never said that. I don't believe a damn thing that come out of anybody's mouth unless you're the good Lord. I'm just kidding. Majority, I don't. Because people, they do one thing and they say another, more so likely than not, to save face. Because nobody wants to come out and say, you know what, to be honest with you, I'm kind of jealous of the fact that my partner or whomever is so confident in their own skin. And I feel like I always have to go to bat for myself in terms of what I look like or why I am the way I am. Ain't nobody gonna come out and say that. That's too real for the people, you know? So, but I said about that, jealousy. And then look, Jupiter is making an opposition to Saturn. Again, remember, Saturn is time. So this also feels like, again, it was all fine and dandy at first. And then as things went on, one of them started to peak. One of them started to possibly see that the other person was possibly jealous of them. And then and it could have just been actionary. It could have been based off of them doing certain things, switching up certain things, and then that it starts to click. You know how sometimes somebody will tell you, like, hey, I don't think that person likes you, but you just don't necessarily want to see it because you're just like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would this person not like me? And you're just like, please, there's no way my mom would not like me, or there's no way that my dad would not like me until it comes to that time. And then you see the reality and you're just like, wow, they don't like me. Well, yeah, I kind of tried to tell you that 3 years ago, but I get it. When you love somebody, you don't really want to see them for who they are sometimes because it hurts, especially if it's not positive. I get it. Okay. But what were we talking about? Oh, yes, we were talking about Jupiter opposite Saturn. And the reason why I'm talking about Jupiter opposite Saturn is because we are focusing right now on their first house. I mean, their first house lord. Okay, which is in, like I said, the eighth. Okay. Jupiter is oh, well, I can't remember if which Greek god is Jupiter. Is that would that be Zeus? Probably, maybe. Because I think if I'm thinking about this correctly, I can't remember if Uranus is the higher octave of Jupiter. It may be. If that's the case, then that fits because Zeus was he sat on the throne in, you know, uh, Mount Olympus, and Neptune, or is it Neptune or is it Uranus? Can't remember. Uranus is tied to the heavens. So I had that backwards. So Uranus may be the higher octave of Jupiter. Again, I'm still reading. There's like 500 pages to read, but we're gonna get it. I know it's one of the two. Anywho, um, that Jupiter opposite Saturn connection. But first, before we look into that, Jupiter in the eighth, when it comes to being in the composite, okay, this can be a placement where you may find it easier to deal with serious things in the relationship. There's nothing wrong with that, and you can deal with serious matters together. So really, that team dynamic, let's say it that way. Now, the darker side of things to me when it comes to this particular placement, you're probably going to try to ignore because you get so fixated on, we are a good team. We've came together and we've figured out issues as a team, and you want to stay in that energy. I get that. But then you get stuck there and you may let the darkness take over. You may forget to, address the darker side of things. And with their Jupiter being in Leo, power, ego, Leo is the stage. Inter it is the entertainer. It is entertainment. So, it may be one of those things where the darker side of things could be, like I said before, whoever it could be, you care more about fame than you do about this family. Oh, hopefully my internet's not. Oh, there it is. I'm about to say, hopefully my internet's not going in and out because I switched over to a new game and it's kind of it's on, but it's like a little bit blurry right now. So I'm like, oh my god, hopefully my internet's not going in and out again. But to continue forward. Okay. Also, with Jupiter in the eighth, this can be a placement where you can help one another transform and deal with deep rooted issues. Now, again, this only can happen if you are not ignoring the darker side of Jupiter being in the eighth house. If you're just cruising through and you're so fixated on always being fun and adventurous, you ain't never going to address the darker side of things. Because then, when the darker side of things need to be addressed, you run or you tuck your tail in between your legs like a dog. So then again, it can lead to divorce, separation, infidelity, Lord knows what else. Okay. So to go forward with Jupiter and Saturn. Okay. So whenever Jupiter and Saturn are in opposition of one another when it comes to this particular type of chart, when it comes to the composite, you struggle to find a healthy balance. Because we know Jupiter is expansive and Saturn, I mean, I don't want to say Saturn can be a little bit of a troll, but who knows? Maybe Saturn can be a little bit of a troll, or it's simply just a matter of Saturn likes to take his time. Jupiter's moving too fast. Saturn ain't on that type of, like they're not on that type of energy. It's like, wow, I just want to, it's like trying to force somebody who needs a moment in the morning to fully wake up. If you're trying to force them to move as quick as you do to you're going to have some issues. It's not going to work that way. Okay, you need a healthy balance. Okay, and when you don't have that healthy balance, then recklessness may ensue. Very questionable behavior. Restricted meaning one person may feel like I'm the maid, I'm the nanny. At this point, you think I'm your errand boy or errand woman. It could get that way, when it comes to this particular type of connection. So you have to be careful. You have to define. It's like, this may be a couple where they may literally benefit from having a actual schedule. Like, look, I work on Tuesday and Thursday. So you're going to be at home with the kids and you work on Monday and Wednesday and part of the day on Sunday. So I can take over the reins at that particular point. And yeah, they would probably benefit from having that type of schedule. They can't just willy-nilly it, but having a schedule would be too much like right, and it would go against their fun-loving, adventurous type of thing that they have going on. So, unfortunately, just the way I've been looking at the composite chart, to me, this feels more so like a relationship where it is just fun. This is one where you are supposed to have fun. It's like one of those relationships where you have it in maybe like your early 20s and you're just kicking it, you have fun, but on a long-term basis that the two of you probably shouldn't be serious because you don't take the same thing serious. And that's unfortunate. I hate whenever that happens because at that point it's just like, well, shit, you should have just stayed at home. Or it could have just been somebody should have had the guts to break it off then we wouldn't be in this whole roundabout way, you know? And we may even have a relationship where they're probably better as friends than they are as lovers, or that may not even be the case. Because if you have a friend, it's like, how is it much of a friendship if I feel like that I'm having to do everything and you don't really have to do much of anything? That's not really much of a friendship, is it? That is an improper balance. Okay. What is another aspect that they have to their chart ruler? Okay, they have North Node, they have Jupiter Sun, and Jupiter Mercury. Okay, so again, expansive energy. Mercury is in Aries. It also may be one of those scenarios as well where what else do we talk about besides sex? I'm just curious. I'm just curious. What else? You sit back and you think you're just like, wow, we have not had an in depth conversation. Kind of like the reading I did on Alec Baldwin and the woman he's married to. They they have in depth conversations more so about them being both batshit crazy and the stupid stuff that they do, but they're having in depth conversations about it. These two, it's like, what else do we talk about besides you know, y- you know, physical stuff? Or what else do we talk about outside of what you want to do? Like, what about me? So this feels again like a connection or relationship where one person just feels forgotten about, where it's just like, well, what about me? You're always talking about you. But I guess I just don't really mean much of anything, do I? Because for some reason, for the last couple months, all we can ever talk about is what you have going on and how life is so hard for you. Have you ever thought that life is hard for me? It's just not balanced. It is not so far from being, compatible. There is definitely some incompatibility there, but this doesn't strike me as two people that should have possibly considered being in a romantic like being married. Let me say that. Remember I said it's like one of those relationships that you just, is the one you had in your 20s where there was just a lot of shiitake going on and it was chaos, but you just knew there's no way we can get married. No, no, no. We don't want the same stuff. But for the pursuit of perfectionism, and it's the public's fault. It's the public's fault for saying that these two were perfect, and they got sucked into the chatter, and they went with it, knowing it was probably the wrong decision. But another one bites the dust. I don't know if these two are going to get divorced. I don't know, but from what I'm seeing, it may. I mean, hey, divorce ain't always a bad thing, especially if you have parents that got married and they won't shut the hell up or arguing about each other. So as a child, you'll be like, oh, thank God you guys finally, stuck a nail in the coffin so I don't have to hear you. Divorce, happy, everybody's happy. Okay. And even after that, the parents will probably realize, like, wow, we did need to be married. It could be a scenario like this. Like, wow, maybe we really did need to be married. Maybe we just weren't really thinking. It's okay to put that out there and say, you know what? Woo, we tried it and it didn't work. For some reason, people get too stuck on the fact that you're not allowed to make a mistake. Like those people that make it seem like, you were in a relationship and you and that person had a child, and then now all of a sudden you're damned to hell because you had a child. Like, no, I thought the relationship was going to work. It didn't work. Fuck you. Get out of my face. I don't regret my kids. I don't regret my decision. It's like that. You're allowed to make a mistake. You're allowed to think that something is going to work and it didn't work. Now, if you keep taking your ass back to something that doesn't work, then we can't save you. You are a lost cause at that point because we tried to tell you and you've seen it for yourself. So, but anyway, so I didn't really go over any of the fixed stars when it pertained to Iman and Teyana because I think we probably pretty much covered it. Their bond. Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Their bond is shown by their eighth house. Their eighth house lord it would be Moon because the eighth house is Cancer. They have Moon in Virgo, so they don't really bond. They don't really bond like they're trying to possibly convince us to bond. Their bond may go as far as them saying they don't want to get a divorce because, of course, we have Moon sitting opposite Venus, but that could just be ego. Because you are attached to the image. You're not attached to the marriage and making it work. You're attached to the image. Those are two different things, you know? So, Okay, so I pretty much am done. I have talked an hour and a half with no breaks really. Okay. Yes, I did that. But it was just flowing, so I just wanted to go ahead and just, get it out the way. So, do you guys have any questions? Shoot. Or if you want me to make an event chart at the moment to kind of see possibly from Tiana's perspective how she is feeling about where they're at right now. The natal chart is only going to tell us so much. But if we do an event chart, it's going to give us an idea of where your emotions are at, right? It's like doing a tarot reading pretty much, you know? Um so we can, I mean, if you guys want me to, I can create a quick event chart, which would be, like I've said before, horary. Do not get an event chart confused with a natal chart. It is not the same. Someone was on my tail end about that because they just could not wrap their mind around the fact that I'm looking at an event chart and I don't really give a shit about the person's natal chart. So don't argue with me. You won't win if you're being rude. I'll let you win if you're being nice and you have a good point. But if you're being rude, you ain't never gonna win with me if you're being rude. It's just not gonna happen. But if you're being nice, I will absolutely let you win because it's balance. um, but I could, if need be, Jeannie Mai and Jeezy. I did a little bit of that on some of you do follow me on Twitter. So I actually did look a little bit at Jeannie Mai and Jeezy's chart. This is whenever Jeannie Mai and Jeezy are whenever you take two people from two different cultures and you try to pretend it doesn't matter. Point blank, period. But I will add that to the list because I didn't break down the whole thing. All I remember is they have Pluto in the eighth, and I think it was conjunct Venus, which is no deal, no deal. Um, so yeah, it literally is the epitome of you think that you think I guess that you think you could change this person. I guess you think that you're different. I'm not saying that you're not different, but you ain't different for him. He's gonna change for the person that he feels necessary to change for. I don't care if he puts a ring on the finger. That doesn't mean anything to me. But I know just whenever I was thinking that, I was just like, I know one of them is gonna completely walk out of this completely heartbroken. I just know they're not really gonna be the same emotionally speaking, but that's the dynamic whenever you have a Venus Pluto connection in your relationship chart. You're not gonna be the same. It's gonna be hard to be the same. That's a toughie. That is a toughie. So, yeah, but I will add that to the list. Okay, let me go and pull up my. Am I on the right? No, that's not it. I will go and pull up my chart or make a chart actually right fast and see what we got. Again, Um, who was it? I don't know if you're in here listening to me right now, but you made a comment on my video about Blueface and Chris Sean, and you fixed your lips to say it's not giving, whatever. But majority of what I said actually did give. Imagine that. I tried to tell you guys, but you know, that's okay. Take me for a joke right now. You guys don't understand. I'm telling you this. I'm going to take over the world one day. I just know it because, I'm somewhat of an evil genius. So there's no way I cannot not take over the world. I wouldn't just be me. Uh, anyway, and yes, I will call you out. I don't care. Cry about it or not, but don't argue with me about it either, because I just let you know that, Anyway, let's see. 13. No, it is 2:22 on the clock. Okay, let's take a stab at this. Okay, look, is the moon in Capricorn right now? I think it is. Let's see. Regatomus. Where is it? Oh, I've been okay. I will share this tab. Okay, here is the event chart, people, that I have pulled based off of the question that we have in terms of how is Tiana feeling at this point. Okay. The ascendant is at 3 degrees. So it's of course it's gonna change. It's pretty early. Okay. So if last week she said she was okay, this week, she may not necessarily be okay, but she would be signified by the moon, okay? Because I don't know Tiana, we're going to give her the 7th house. The 7th house is like a very public house, okay? So we're going to give her the 7th house. If again, as I said before, if Tiana and I were close and she came to me and said, "Hey, Faith, read this horary or let me know what's going on," I would give her the 1st house. But that's not the case because I don't know this woman. So she is signified by moon or Cancer on the 7th. So the descendant is always your 7th house. Anytime you hear somebody say your descendant, they're talking about your 7th house. Okay. Don't let it confuse you. Anytime you hear somebody say your midhaven, they're talking about your 10th house. Don't let them confuse you. Okay. Don't let it be more complicated than what it already is. That's why I really try to break it down as best I can. I know it's still gibberish, but I really do try to break it down. And I'm going to keep working on breaking it down. Okay. Um, oh my God, that should have been a goal. What the hell? Anyway, so let's look at the descendant degree. The descendant degree is on 3. So we know if you remember or you have the chart, the 3rd degree is tied to Mercury, right? Our Mercury, of course, is our communicator. Now we know moon is or Cancer is moon. Moon is emotions, but also moon is our mind. Okay. She is processing. Okay. She is processing how to feel. Maybe something has been said to her. Okay. Who knows by who? Something has been said to her. And at this particular point, she is trying to process what that means for her situation. So the 3rd degree of Cancer says sensual, extravagant, reckless, what I say, prone to excess impulses. Again, she's processing. Okay. Now, the Lord of Cancer is here in the 1st house. It is debilitated. So she may be processing more angry emotions than anything else. Because again, the moon is debilitated and it is in the 1st house. But also, because the 1st house is the house of face, she may be trying to save face on the matter as well. She may be trying to make it out to be something that it's not because you could be embarrassed by the true reason why you and this person have separated. It's like you don't want anybody to you don't want anybody to smell your scent of, "Oh my God, this is bad." But I'm trying to make it seem not as bad, but it's bad. Okay. It could be that. Now we're going to take a look, and her moon, her moon is conjunct Pluto. Now, moon, Pluto, I mean, and another thing I wanted to say as well, a part of processing those emotions, she may be teeter-tottering back and forth of saying that he used me, um, you I don't know, trying to use me for fame, or all you wanted was this, or all you wanted was that. Who knows what she's gonna come up with? But that's the range of emotions. Okay, again, you have her, Tiana, on the descendant of the moon on a degree tied to your intellect. So moon and mind her mind and her intellect are not really connecting right now. It's not necessarily making any sense. And in turn, she may be being or about to be, because it's still early, she may be about to get a bit reckless when it pertains to whatever the heck is going on. Now, I am going to look up the degree, and the moon and Pluto are in a tight conjunction. Okay. So woo, woo, woo. It's very intense, I would say, for her right now. Her emotional nature is intense. It is very dark feminine energy, because earth and water are our feminine energies, and air and fire are our masculine energies. So like I said, it's very dark feminine energy that is coming from Teyana at this particular point. um so, curious or wondering about someone's motive. Like, what was your motive? Or she may just be wondering about what Iman's motive is, because maybe he was actually the one that initiated or that wanted the separation. So she could be in her mind kind of wondering, like, why, what for? But it's not like you're processing it in a manner of, okay, I can see that. It's more so you're processing it in a manner of, I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him. How could you? You know, it could be like that, because when this particular connection happens, triggering events, and we know the moon is tied to the past. So if this particular type of situation happened with an old boyfriend, or if this possibly happened in the relationship that maybe her mom and her dad had, this is triggering that. So if that was an angry time, that same anger is going to be coming up again, and you may not even really be able to make sense of where it's coming from. But I can tell you where it's coming from. It's coming from the past. You've already possibly experienced some sort of traumatic something from back then. And this is just, it's sparking. So extreme moods, dark moods. Remember I said it's going to change. Okay. Um, you know, maybe even having bad dreams, or it could be, if she possibly had a dream about this whole thing, it could go as far as you've scared yourself because you possibly had a dream that this is going to happen, and now energetically you are just, I don't know how to properly explain it, but you know what I'm saying. Okay. So this could even go as far as, that crazy ex-girlfriend find out something, bust your windows out your car, because your intuition is being fueled by, or your emotions are influenced by your intuition. But let's be clear, sometimes people let their intuitions run them, and sometimes maybe, what if your intuition is really at this point going off of fear, because you are now in a particular position where you've never felt this type of emotion. So you may be trying to convince yourself of something that's not really happening, hence the continued breakdown. Okay. I mean, honest, I wouldn't even, I mean, I don't know if Tiana believes in astrology. She probably does, but I wouldn't even be surprised if she's probably um typing real fast a message to a psychic. Like, what the hell is going on? You didn't tell me that this is gonna happen. It could be that serious. Okay. Because you just don't know what you are going to do whenever the moon sits atop Pluto, because in this particular position you don't really have much. It's like you're feeling out of control. You have little control over your subconscious, but with this, your feelings and your intuition can take control over your conscious intentions and actions, causing you to do something stupid. But she's trying to keep from doing, I get it, she's trying to keep from doing something stupid. But fear, paranoia, all those Scorpio themes are coming into play whenever these two planets are atop one another. You may start to lie. You may start to manipulate. You may start to go to intimidation. You may try to intimidate the other person. You may try to accuse the other person of lying. You may try to manipulate the other person and coming back by doing something that you know is unacceptable. So, and I hate to say it again, moon mother, if you have been emotionally manipulated by your own mother, or if you have seen your mother emotionally manipulate people, you are about to do the same thing because subconsciously, that's kind of like all you know how to do in these particular situations. But that's an easy fix, to be honest. But maybe there's comfort for her in the dark emotions, as strange as it may sound. That's a great ball, and you better make it. Goal. I knew it. Okay, sorry. Oh. Okay, back to the chart. I mean, that was a great goal. All right. So remember, Iman is going to be seventh from Teyana. So we know that Teyana is situated. She really is trying to save face at this particular point, but I am the way it's coming across. It seems like he was the one that maybe initiated this. And you kind of have to come out now and say something because you don't want to look like the bad guy, or you don't want something coming out that makes you look like the bad guy. Not saying she is, but that's just a fear. Remember, fear, paranoia, moon, Pluto. Okay. So Iman is going to be seventh from her. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, imagine that. They are running the same. They're running on the same thing. Okay. They both are feeling very deep, dark, heavy emotions when it comes to this whole situation. And we don't really know at this point who the culprit is because they both are trying to save face. There may be something that they are hiding because we know Pluto can definitely be secrets. There definitely could be something that the both of them are hiding that they don't necessarily want to be outed about. Okay. But yeah, and you see how Moon is making an aspect to the Sun in Libra. Sun is debilitated in Libra because Sun is exalted in Aries. Aries and Libra are sister signs. Ego. Your ego is bruised. Your ego is hurt. Okay. I mean, you may even, and this is a kite as well. The focal point here is this Neptune in Pisces, which I'm going to look at in just a second. But, with ninth house. So, I mean, I wonder if they're still living together. I think they are. I think these 2 are possibly still living together. I mean, one of them may be in terms of even if you go stay the night at somebody else's house, you just staying the night, but your home is still where it's at. And I get it, they have kids anyway, so that would totally make sense. I could see them probably still living together. But remember I talked about this in my predictions 2 years ago where I said we're going to come into a time where a lot of people divorced, separated, are still going to be living together. So you have to make sure that your eyes are open because you may end up dealing with someone and they still sleep in the same bed as their ex-partner. Even if the relationship is over. Why the hell are you still sleeping in the same bed? I can get like a guest room, but why are you sharing the same mattress and pillow? That is questionable. Ooh, crack it. Crack it. There you go. Whew, that was close. Sorry. Um so yeah, I think that's my guess on this. But also the moon is hitting Uranus, okay? So we know Uranus is in Taurus. Um so we know Uranus deals with the unexpected, but we know Taurus or Venus is tied to, your wealth, but also I've talked about it before. Taurus is natural in the second house, which again is our house of our self worth. So in this particular instance, it could even be one of those situations where you are really questioning your self worth, or the other person, it could be attacking your self worth a little bit. They may be coming out and saying things to you that they didn't say before, but what is it? Angry mind, sober thoughts, whatever, angry words, sober thoughts, or I mean, I guess there's drunk mind, sober thoughts, but you get the point. Um, now the truth is coming out. Now, who knows? Secrets could even possibly be coming out. So and this is right on top of each other again. Is it separating, or is it, oh, it's applying. So there may even be something else that could possibly be coming out. Who knows? Maybe the next moon cycle, or it could be maybe sooner than later. Who knows? It could be today, because this is such a tight orb. Another attempt to possibly save face, but it's not what you think it is, because that's exactly what's going on. I do feel one of them has kind of like been told off by the other person, and they've kind of like let you know how they really feel about you, and it's bad. It's not good. It doesn't give me very warm, feely feels. 27th degree of Capricorn. It may not be bad though. Let's try to see. Okay. Catholic nature, reliable, honor, famous, definition, astronomy, successful ventures. Yeah. Remember I said I still think that these two live together? Ooh, that's a handball. um, yeah. Catholic nature. Wasn't I just making a joke about an astrologer or a psychic? Isn't that funny? Because the 27th degree is a degree of astronomy in Capricorn. So it's just so funny that I was talking about that. But yeah, the moon. Yeah, moon 1 degree. Oh, let me look at this Pisces Neptune 26 degrees in the third house. Immodesty, gossip. Yep, I figured that was the case. I said this is the focal point. This is a kite. Okay, the kite's flying. The kite is in the air. So something is happening. We haven't seen it yet, but this also makes me think of dropping gossip, dropping scandals, PR something. Again, the Neptune is the focal point. It's in retrograde, but so with it being in retrograde, remember it's going backwards. This could be a scandal that maybe came out in the past when it pertains to these two, but we didn't pay attention, or scandal, something tied to one of their past, could be on the gossip sectors. I wouldn't necessarily say super soon. Okay. I don't know if it would be super soon in that manner. Maybe it could come after the moon passes Pluto, which literally could be the next couple of days. Um, so it would be interesting to see how this is going to play out. But again, they both are feeling a way about one another. It doesn't give me in. But the crazy thing about it, with it being with the moon being on the 27th degree of like successful, one of them or both, one of them could really be in that energy where they're kind of just like, you know what, I'm okay. I'm okay with the fact that the marriage failed. Remember, I just talked about that, where you may get out of it and you're just like, wow, we probably needed to let this go. So one of them could really truthfully be okay that this marriage doesn't, is not going to happen anymore. It's like, or it could go as far as one of them being like, oh, we prayed about it and some, but I just think one of them is kind of just like, you know what, it's okay. We thought it was going to work, it didn't work, it's not the end of the world, fine, we move. But I don't necessarily think that is the consensus for both of them. It could be, but one of them, I don't know if that's the consensus. you know but it's going to change. So like I said, right now they could definitely just be processing. You're really really angry, you're going through those 7 stages of grief. That could be what is going on, but I do feel like we are possibly in for a series of scandals, hopefully not, or a series of gossip when it pertains to Iman and Teyana. Hope it's not that bad. Okay. But this may be gossip tied to contracts, business deals, because we do have the third house of contracts, but we also do have younger siblings, neighbors. The neighbors may know something. Hopefully, it is not a scenario where you're like sleeping with the neighbor, but I don't put anything past anybody. So, you know how that goes. Hopefully they can get it together. I really do. Hopefully, if they can walk away from this and be like, okay, um, we tried it, it failed miserably, but at least we don't hate each other. I think that is success. It doesn't always work, but again, I feel that this is, to me, I feel like this is a marriage that, I don't know if I can say, I don't maybe it wasn't supposed to happen because they have that karmic connection. Maybe it was, but I don't know if I'm even convinced then. I think probably karmically you were supposed to meet. But as far as get married, maybe not. It could have definitely been one of those things where it's just like, let's just live in the moment, but let's not talk about marriage. Maybe that would be better. Mm. Yolanda. Oh, I did not know that he convinced her to have a baby, but that makes sense. Remember, I talked about in Iman's chart, he has that Jupiter exalted. He has, and it's connecting his Chiron in Cancer. It doesn't shock me that he wanted or he convinced her to have a baby because I do feel overall he probably really does like being a dad. That probably is something that it brings him joy. There's nothing wrong with that. Whereas wonder what brings Teyana joy. I really just feel like what brings Teyana joy is business. And there's nothing wrong with that either, but probably not a good idea to have a family. Oh, performing. See right here? She has Jupiter and Leo, and it's in the sixth house though. Oh, I didn't think about that. If this chart sticks, which it probably won't because of birth time, if this chart sticks, you know, her Jupiter is in the house of divorce. So that's unfortunate. But I kind of feel like it was him. That's me, you know? But anyway, what brings Tiana joy? Performing, entertaining. Like I said, may not necessarily be the best placement to have a family. I feel like that's something that should be done when you're done performing, entertaining. Um, it's probably pretty screwed up to say, but for some reason, when I kept saying her joy is to perform, it kind of makes me think of like the old days or olden times whenever men went to war, like World War I, World War II, and they had the women come in to entertain them, not in like a sexually sense, but like dancing, who knows, burlesque or something like that. It kind of feels like that a little bit. Um, but yeah, Jupiter, Pluto and Scorpio, Pluto and Scorpio. But the wounded healer, definitely wounds surrounding children, wounds surrounding her own mother or being a mother that she needs to address or fix. He has some wounds as well around family or women, and maybe it could be as far as, don't be looking for women to be your mother, because we may have a mama's boy on our hand as well, someone who really respects their mother, loves their mother, but they may have that same expectation when it pertains to their wife or their partner, where you need to be like their mom because their mom brings them possibly that sense of joy. That's fine and dandy, but you need to find somebody else that's okay with that, honestly. Um, I would avoid that like the plague, because that can be one of those where it can be an issue over time, because then you're probably be telling your mom about everything. You be comparing me to your mom. You be wanting me to do exactly what your mom does, and no person can be like the next person. Hence, individuality. So he needs to fix that. Stop being so damn unserious. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing. But if you're doing that like 90% of the time, I think I would be kind of annoyed as well. Hmm. Okay, rolling, coming up on pretty much 2 hours. So I am going to close this out. Okay. And I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to me for these last 2 hours. Enjoy your week. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday or Monday, wherever it is at. And I will see you guys later.